Joins us right now, co-host of the Eagle Hour on SuperTalk Hattiesburg, SuperTalk Laurel. You can get that on demand as well. Looking back to the weekend that was Sunbelt Conference game for Southern Miss on the road to face the Troy Trojans. It's a Troy team that has been pretty good, right? They were the Hail Mary away from winning against Appalachian State. They played tough in the season opener against Ole Miss in Oxford. 27-10 the final. Troy moves to 4-2 on the year, 2-1 in Sunbelt Conference play. That was the Sunbelt opener for Southern Miss, so they're 0-1 in the league. Luke, it was close, right? It was 7-3. Southern Miss with the lead early in the second quarter, but then it was pretty much all Troy the rest of the way. What did you take away Saturday night?
Well, good afternoon, Richard. Yeah, I mean, a few things. First and foremost, the defense for Southern Miss, apart from really one drive to start the second half, they were elite. You actually look at the way the stats break down. Southern Miss had more plays on offense than Troy did. Defense coming out in the third quarter, Troy got it starting at their 17, went 83 yards in 6 plays. And that was really the only time the defense really was on their heels for the whole game. So it was a good defensive performance. The rest of the time, the Troy offense was set up by turnovers, 3 interceptions, a fumble. And that's really was the story of the game. And so the reason for me that first possession in the second half was so crucial is because it made it a 2-score game when it was only a 1-score game. And so it totally changed their approach on offense. They weren't getting much done. Troy was basically forcing Southern Miss into like hitches, and they couldn't run the ball. And so they were, dropping some safeties in coverage. And so you couldn't get Brownlee in one-on-one. Wilkie missed some throws across the middle. And so Troy basically forced them to abandon any attempt at the running game and keep everything in the passing game in front of them. And they just were unable to do anything offensively.
There are lots and lots of ways to win, right? You can win with defense. You can win with high-scoring offense. You can win with balance. You can win weird games. It's hard to draw up a scenario, though, where you run 61 plays with 205 yards of total offense and you find a way to win. And that's where Southern Miss was on Saturday night, right? With, a net of 48 yards rushing. That obviously factors in sack yardage and 157 through the air. And it's not like Troy completely lit the score share, the stat sheet up either.
You look at what they did last year. We talked about that last week, and I think Wilkie was sacked 4 times. But they did get pushed around. But some of the interceptions, he underthrew one. Will Hall thought maybe one was a PI, but it seemed as if Zach, it was really the first game that he's turned the ball over like that, and it was a game where he really possibly couldn't put behind him what he had just done on the field. Will Hall talked about that post-game, just the ability to flush what you've done. They just couldn't get anything, done offensively. Hall said today he's got to be a better play caller. And I think the frustration was for the average football viewer and the football fan, they wanted him to go vertical. And it was just really what John Sumrall dialed up on defense that really prevented them. And so basically you had to run, 5 to 6 yard routes to at least try to move the football because you couldn't do anything on the ground.
In a lot of ways, it was Zach Wilkie looked like a true freshman playing quarterback in a conference game, right?
Yeah, first conference game they played. Troy's going to compete for South Alabama for tops in the West, which is wide open now. And Troy's front seven is probably some of the best in the conference, maybe possibly the best front seven they faced the entire year going forward.
Where do you go from here if you're Southern Miss? This is obviously a disappointing loss, but you got to turn around and get back to it. It doesn't get any easier. We know the schedule. It's Arkansas State. That's a winnable game this week. Then Texas State. Louisiana is way off from where they've been in recent years under Billy Napier. That's a winnable game. So kind of looking ahead to the next 2-3 weeks.
Well, you got to look back 2 weeks because it goes back to what you said just a second ago. I think the recipe to win was found in the Tulane game, and it is force a couple turnovers, make a couple big throws, and play solid in the other two aspects of the game. But this is not going to be a team that if they turn the ball over probably more than twice, you're going to get behind. And we should say, I mean, because as tough as it was offensively, you mentioned it. I mean, defensively, this is an elite defense in the Sun Belt. I mean, this is something that of course Austin Armstrong and Will Hall are proud of. But when you look at going forward, the Eagles are favored on Saturday. The only thing that might scare you, a lot of people forget about these kids when they play early on. But the starting quarterback for Arkansas State's a guy named James Blackman. Started his career at Florida State, threw for over 4,500 yards down there. He's thrown for 200 yards and over 200 yards in every game this year for Arkansas State except Ohio State, where he threw for 188. So he's a mobile quarterback, and could cause some problems. He's a veteran arm. But, yeah, and you think Texas State's going to be winnable, and then they beat Appalachian, pretty good. I think probably you're looking at Arkansas State. You may be saying that the Louisiana game, which has now been bumped to ESPN2 on a Thursday night, may be more winnable than the Texas State game on the road. So the good news still is that the West is still wide open. There's a little difference between Troy and South Alabama. But, again, the Eagles can get right back in this. You could look up, a couple weeks. You could be 2-1, even 3-1 in the conference.
When you look at the Sun Belt overall, over on the opposite side, on the East, Coastal Carolina, James Madison, both 3-0. So James Madison is not eligible for a bowl game. Are they eligible to play for the conference title?
For our understanding, they're not. They could only win the East. So what's really interesting about this, Richard, is that James Madison and Coastal play the last week of the season. So if they go, all the way out, that would be James Madison's, in a sense, title game. James Madison could beat Coastal, and then Coastal would represent the East because they're not allowed to win a conference championship, which kind of stinks for them because they got kicked out of the Colonial last year too, couldn't compete for one.
Yeah, that's a screwy deal. I know our buddy Kelso down on the coast is bummed about that. But the rest of the East, I guess, kind of manageable with Old Dominion, Georgia State, Appalachian State, who everybody thought coming in was kind of the cream of the crop after they go to Lubbock or to College Station and they win, but only 1-2 in league play. Marshall's got a win against Notre Dame. They're 0-1 in league play. Georgia Southern, 3 wins overall, 0-2 in league play. They got a coach fired this year. It's crazy.
It really is, and I guess Southern Miss fans now are finding out what was so exciting about the Sun Belt, and it's becoming a week or a league. If other than James Madison or Coastal, basically anybody can win every week. An interesting game this weekend: James Madison at Clay Helton, in Statesboro against Georgia Southern. But a little Fun Belt action tomorrow night. Lafayette's got to go to Marshall, and Marshall's been playing out without Ali, their running back, and so
yeah.
I can say this, and I've heard other Southern Miss fans say this. It's the first time in a long time Southern Miss fans have enjoyed watching their conference mates in games that don't include the Golden Eagles. And that's really exciting to be a part of conference like that.
What else do you see with Arkansas State? I saw them in that game against Memphis. I thought they were competitive against Memphis, and in some ways Butch Jones coached out of a win in that game.
So 400 yards a game. It's if there's an opponent on your schedule that you need to make yourself feel better offensively for it, it's this game. They're giving up 265 yards a game through the air. So an opportunity for Zach Wilkie to get some more confidence. But they've got to find ways for the intermediate passing game, other than just throwing it up to Wilkie or, these little hitch routes. It'll be interesting to see what Will Hall does. Particularly, he mentioned after the game, some conversations that he had with Zach Wilkie during the game. And I think he realizes, too, that, because he's the head coach, maybe some of those conversations are different. If it was another situation where Wilkie, had a quarterback coach that was not the head coach. And so it'll be interesting to see how Will, manages that situation going forward. Should mention Ty Keys, he's going to be out several weeks. He's casted up on his right hand. So Jake Lang will be the backup quarterback going forward.
6 o'clock Saturday night at the Rock, Arkansas State and Southern Miss. Golden Eagles trying to bounce back and get that first conference win. Thanks, Luke.
Homecoming Saturday. So appreciate the time today, Richard. See y'all.
You going to wear a tuxedo for that?
I will not be wearing this color shirt right now. Just to let you know that.
That's fair. I think you should wear a tuxedo. That's